And so I went home and I started stalking his wife on Facebook to see if she would ever say his name throughout the thing. And then finally I saw it was Brandon. And so at the time I didn't know he was the plague. It was just Brandon. And so he just started talking to me in the parking lot of Hy-Vee, asking me about, where I was at, how I was doing. Like the second or third question is, what's your schedule like? And I'm like, that's just kind of a odd question to ask. And I said, well, I'm flexible. And he's like, well, I have this 5:30 workout group. I think you should attend.
That's it?
And I said, yeah, I think I should attend.
Really?
And he just Jedi-ed. And I wasn't in good shape when he asked me in many ways. I was going home and it was a Sunday. I was going to grill steaks and be a real family man, grill the steaks and have some wine with the family, and then proceed to have 10 or 12 beers and 5 or 6 scotches that night and go to bed. And I'd love to say that was once a month on a Sunday, but that was every night. And so I'd wake up every morning with a hangover. It was just what I did. But I was functioning, right? Didn't do it in the morning, never did it during the day, never really even like right when I got home.
No hair of the dog in the morning or anything?
Nope. And not even like right when I got home. It was like around dinner and then afterwards, and I would just go up to my loft and drink myself asleep.
How did that happen? How did it start?
I don't know. I think it just started when I started staying up later and just watching sports and eating.
Hello and welcome to the Chris Will Podcast on iCode Media. Today I had a great conversation with Joe Schaffner, who is in my workout group F3, and we talked about leadership principles. We talked about really a great journey story from him that is really moving to me. So please enjoy our conversation. As always, be sure to subscribe to the podcast, write a review, and share it with your friends. And support those who support us. We've been providing myopia control treatments in our practice for years. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while, Cooper Vision has received FDA approval of its innovative MiSight one-day contact lens. This will be the cornerstone of a comprehensive myopia management approach to be offered by Cooper Vision. This daily wear, single-use contact lens is the first and only FDA-approved product clinically proven to slow the progression of myopia when initially prescribed for children 8 to 12 years old and when compared to children in the control group wearing a single vision one-day contact lens. Check out the show notes for all the specific prescribing details and to get more information about this lens and how you can begin to offer it in your practice.
Yeah. Me getting 1 pot of coffee and just...
How'd your wife handle that?
Totally cool.
She's cool with it?
Totally cool. Not one... I mean, she's in the fit ass, the fit women's club.
Oh, yeah. Well,
so she does that Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays.
Did she start it? Was she one of the...
She's not one of the very, very first, but she was in there like in the second or third workout.
Where do they go?
They go, like this morning they were at our Cornhusker Stinson Park. They've gone to...
So do they post the same places that we will? And they might be there the same time or no?
Not the same time. So I ran into her one time leaving a Tuesday workout at Cornhusker, and she was coming there.
Okay.
So
they go later or earlier?
They go later. And so she's done usually home about 7:25.
Okay.
Right around there. And so she really loves it. She's workout kind of a freak. She way more before I was.
Really? Did Plague bring you in? Is that what he was telling me yesterday?
Yeah.
Been almost 3 years?
Yeah.
Or over 3 years?
Nope. F3 almost 3 years. So right. We just finished 3. Yeah. So I was in December of the first year, so I made it within like the calendar year of the first year. And I knew Plague's wife. She'd worked with me at a former company I was with, and I knew him. I had him at my house a couple times.
He told me you didn't recognize him.
Well, the truth is I recognized him. I just didn't be able to put his name. So I knew who he was. I knew where I knew him from. I just didn't know his name. So it's that old buddy, champ, pal.
Yeah.
Right?
How are you, man?
Right.
Yeah.
And so I went home and I started stalking his wife on Facebook to see if she would ever say his name throughout the thing. And then finally I saw it was Brandon. And so at the time I didn't know he was the plague. Yeah. It was just Brandon. And so he just started talking to me in the parking lot of Hy-Vee, asking me about, where I was at, how I was doing. Like the second or third question is, what's your schedule like? And I'm like, that's just kind of a odd question to ask. And I said, well, I'm flexible. And he's like, well, I have this 5:30 workout group. I think you should attend.
That's it?
I said, yeah, I think I should attend.
Really?
And he just Jedi-ed. And I wasn't in good shape when he asked me in many ways. I was going home, and it was a Sunday. I was going to grill steaks and be a real family man, grill the steaks and have some wine with the family, and then proceed to have 10 or 12 beers and 5 or 6 scotches that night and go to bed. And I'd love to say that was once a month on a Sunday, but that was every night. And so I'd wake up every morning with a hangover. It was just what I did. But I was functioning, right? Didn't do it in the morning, never did it during the day, never really even like right when I got home.
No hair of the dog in the morning or anything?
Nope. And not even like right when I got home. It was like around dinner and then afterwards, and I would just go up to my loft and drink myself asleep.
How did that happen? How did it start?
I don't know. I think it just started when I started staying up later and just watching sports and maybe even gambling on games and watching. And I just got to where midnight was just time to go to bed, right? And my mornings were just get up enough to get to work, right? And work was good, no problems. I thought I had a good marriage. I thought I was a good husband. I thought I was a good father. But I was that proverbial sad clown. And that day I quit. And I just said, I'm done.
When Plague asked you?
And so
does he knows that?
Yeah. And so I didn't quit like cold turkey and just done with it like those guys did. But I certainly realized I cannot get up at 4:30 in the morning and work out with a hangover. I mean, that's
right.
That's not going to happen. And so when I quit, it was almost coincided with that I went every day. And so there were no breaks.
Yeah.
I didn't have a break. Even so, and it became after 1 week of it, when Saturday came along and we didn't have a workout on Sunday, I didn't really want to drink.
That's interesting. So it was, a lot of people, I always think I probably have a little bit of an addictive personality. So like even if I've had surgery once, but I just wouldn't want narcotics because I'd be worried. I'd be worried about being addicted. But it seems like if you can cut it like that and not want it anymore, there's a different type of addiction, right? It was more of like a social or what do you make of that? Have you ever thought about that?
Oh, yeah, a lot, because I have a younger brother that's struggling right now. And so,
he's in Indiana, right?
Yeah, correct. And so, I did it to just because no one was up, everyone was asleep, I'm watching TV, and I'm just drinking myself asleep. And I had problems going to sleep and just falling asleep.
Was your mind racing? Or?
Yeah. I had some anxiety of things that maybe I shouldn't be anxious about anyways to begin with. And I just remember first waking up without a hangover that Monday morning, the Murph, which I had no idea.
That was after your first week?
That was my first day. Was Sunday night was my first night going to sleep without drinking.
Okay.
And I took I remember Tylenol PM. So I said, I got to figure out how to get to sleep because I don't go to sleep without alcohol.
Yeah.
And so I took the Tylenol PM, got up, did that workout. And when I got home, I felt like a kid on his way down from Christmas to the stairs I was just, the endorphins were absolutely flying through my body. I felt so much energy while being at the same time exhausted and humiliated.
And not knowing what it's going to feel like tomorrow morning.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And humiliated that I was like, couldn't do a push-up, not even attempting pull-ups. The run was a walk at times for me, and getting, all of that and then going, I'm going to do it again.
Because of the rush?
Yes.
And this wasn't even, you hadn't even really, you were only barely scratching the surface with any guys at that point.
I didn't know
just the work. It was just the hard grind of.
We went to coffee afterwards, and I think the first workout, there's probably a dozen guys there. And
was it in the district? Sorry, was the Murph in the district, or was it?
It was Red Wing.
Oh, it was Red Wing.
It was Aldrich.
Okay.
Aldrich was the first Murph, and so we went for coffee. And when you're first there, you're just kind of overwhelmed. And I just assume these guys have been doing it forever. Like the way they did cadence and the way they just moved about and the flow of the Murph and how it just, if you've known the Murph, it's the 10, 20, and then the squats, 30, and then it's just the run. And then the next run. And I just felt like, gosh, these guys have been doing this a long time. And find out a couple of those guys only been there a few months, few weeks even. But my addictive personality, I guess it just flipped a different switch, right? And I became addicted to that just as quickly as I got rid of alcohol.
Yeah.
I got that. And so I just started going every day. And so I was going to bed sore and sometimes waking up not sore. Sometimes I wouldn't go to bed sore, but waking up like Frankenstein with the Frankenstein legs. And I just realized I want to battle through it. And I think the first 10 days leading right up to Christmas, I lost some weight, and it showed, and people said stuff. And so that fueled the addictive personality that I want to get better. I want to be back in shape. I don't want to be that last guy. Right. And I don't want to be the old man that can't do this. And so, and just getting up and being up in the morning and doing it with these guys. And it was right when, Paradise had just opened. It was the first Paradise workout. So we were doing kind of a talk afterwards. And then the Q Source came along. And I don't know, it was right when I needed it. I just turned 50, like a month earlier. 50 is obviously a milestone where people say, I'm going to do this, right? Right before New Year's,
Yep.
People say, I'm going to do this. And I said, no, I'm doing it right now. I'm just going to do this right now. And so, yeah, I still have a social drink every now and then, but
you can manage that.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I managed the others. I was purposeful, right? So it wasn't like I couldn't, like I needed it. I just did it. Right? It wasn't like I woke up in the morning and wanted it. And it wasn't like even the evenings, I'm like, oh, I'm shaking if I don't get it. Right. And so when I quit, I had no withdrawals, anything. I don't know why. I mean, I thank God for that. But I mean, I was drinking amounts of alcohol that would make alcoholics go, you have a serious problem.
Have you had any of your liver function tests or any of that kind of stuff?
Everything's
good?
Yep, everything's good.
And you are so blessed.
I am.
How long did you do that for? How many years?
8 or 9 years.
And it just sort of started,
it evolved,
right? Just evolved.
Right. Yeah. And then, my wife every now and then would call me out on it, rightfully so. And I would be like, what, you don't have a good life? What are you missing?
Yeah.
Right. We have a beautiful home here. We have beautiful kids. I coach every sport. You have the ability to be a stay-at-home mom and take care of our family and our home. We have a lake house. I work, so I was that sad clown, right? That makeup was that all those things didn't really matter if I wasn't present.
Right. And you weren't.
I wasn't.
You never. So you were there. Was your mind on work, or was your mind on just other things? You just weren't.
On other things, no. I coached my son's sports, and I was completely involved with that. And I would be up, and if he asked me to get up at 4 a.m. and play catch with him, I would. So those things. But what really struggled was just that there were two. I tell folks about the 2 hours, the 2 hour flip. And there's different ways I've explained it, but the 2 hour flip is I took 2 hours from my day and I flipped them. I took from 10 to midnight. I said, I'm going to sleep those hours. And from 5 to 7, I'm going to be awake. And the time that I spend from 5 to 7, those 2 hours has changed my life. sleeping from 10 to midnight and being up with F3 from 5 to 7 has changed. I just took 2 hours. And think about it. There are very few people on this planet that from 10 to midnight is a productive time for them.
Right.
You're not doing really anything from 10 to midnight. Now, every now and then you might have something you have to do, but rarely is that every day from 5 to 7 is productive for me.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah.
And so I was able to do that, and I realized that was what I needed, right? And then I just became a junkie for it. I loved it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you, man. I've always known, maybe not always, but I think I'll credit my dad with it. And, my son hates when I do this, but on a Saturday morning, I remember waking up, or on every day in the summer, and sun's up, my curtains are open. My dad's got the mini blind sound.
Yep.
And,
Yep.
sun's, he wouldn't care. He wouldn't care if I was asleep, but he would make sure I wasn't, and he didn't have like any specific projects all the time. We would have like yard work or stuff like that, but like burning daylight, and, I couldn't sleep anymore. And so he kind of built that into me. And so like when I was in school, if I were going to cram like everybody else crammed, I had buddies that would cram in, from 10 to 2, whatever. Totally. I never did that. I was always a crammer from 5 to 8, right? So the early stuff, it wasn't intentional on my part at all, but I've always been an early riser guy. And my wife will tell you, I'll pass out at 9 o'clock at night, some nights. Although F3 has gotten better because when I first started it, I would work out about 6. So I had a regimen. I was working out before the curse brought me in September of last year. And I would work out at 6, but I was pushing that time where I was getting done working out and my kids were awake, kind of rustling downstairs. And so I wasn't able to come home and help with that much. And so F3 pushed it further earlier. And that's a real good thing for me because I can't always go to Q Source and that stuff. I'd like to go more, and I go some, but I can be home. I can cook pancakes. I can, so my mood is always like really good in the morning, not just my mood, but like my excitement for the day, just like you're describing. I've done something difficult with guys that are working to be better, just like I am. And so anyway, I think there's something to be said about that early rising.
I totally agree because it was never really a part of me. I could do it. Let's say I was younger and my father said, we need to go, we're going hunting, so we got to get up, or, if there was something we needed to do, but just that early morning. And so I've told folks in the last 2.5 years, I've seen more sunrises than I've seen my whole life combined. And it's a beautiful thing. And I've seen them when it's 30 below zero, and I've seen them when it's, 85 degrees. Right. And it is an amazing thing. There's that bond. That first winter of 18 going into 19 was extremely brutal. And we had a stretch this year was pretty bad, but that, and it was in the fact that we only had one workout a day, there's
one
only
place
one site,
to go,
one site. So it was the same guys, right? And so you saw them and you knew who's going to be there, and it was brutal, but it galvanized us.
Yeah.
Right. And it almost made getting to that coffee even more of a treat. Right.
Yeah.
And then to sit there and say, look what we just did.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, especially because, a lot of people, when you ask them the first time or even the 10th time, they say it's too cold. It's too dark. It's too early. But when you do it, and you're done with it, I could do it. It's not too cold. It's not too dark. It's not too early.
Right.
Right.
It's talk to Plague about this. It's the butts and the ants, but it's so early, but it's so cold. And you get this, and you get that, and you get that. So instead of looking at it from a butt perspective, but it's so early, but it's so cold out, right? And you get this though, and you get that, and you get this in return. There's so many more returns to it. And so one of the things within the F3 lexicon is noble excuses, right? So it's a noble excuse. I'm going to go home and be with my family, right? Or I got to work, or I need to do some yard stuff, whatever it is. Those are noble excuses.
Sure.
But no one that I'm aware of has ever done F3 and those didn't enhance.
And they didn't do the other things too.
Right. And those didn't even get better.
Yep.
Not only did you do those things, you got better, right? You don't come to F3 and say, gosh, I'm just not as good a father as I used to be now that I've been at F3, right? I'm not really a good husband anymore, right? Now that I'm with F3, I'm really not doing good, well at work now because I'm at F3. It's the opposite. More guys are better fathers. They'll tell you. More guys are better husbands and put their wife first, their M first, right? And then more guys are getting that, the willingness to be a leader, right? The opportunities. That's why F3 is so unbelievably unique. And so the confidence that it can bring out in people is amazing. And one of the things I decided to do if and when I get asked to Q this year is that I'm only going to talk about the 5 core principles and our mission statement and stuff that's specifically involved in F3, and not necessarily myself or, quoting any poets or anything like that. That's all good. And I really enjoy those COTs and enjoy all the COTs, but I just want to talk about how unique our 5 core principles are. It's free.
Yeah. So I want to pause you because I want to hear all the 5 principles, but when I ask people to come, because I was like this. I was like, what's the catch? When the curse asked me to come, I'm thinking, are you going to try to evangelize me into some non-denominational Christian religion? I'm perfectly happy being Catholic, but if you want to try, fine. I'll, or are you gonna try to sell me something? Or and it's so hard to wrap your mind around that, right? So it's always free. It's always
open to all men.
Yep.
It's always held outside. And let's just stop with those 3, right? It's free. Nothing's free really, right? But it is.
Yeah.
And not only is it free, you get paid back in so many ways. And it is open to all men. Period.
Everybody.
Everybody.
Yeah.
No questions asked. It's always held outside. Just ask these guys, right? Yeah. I got to admit, every now and then we're in a parking garage, but that wind still whistles through that parking garage, right? And then you get to the next one where it's led in a rotating fashion. So imagine going to your gym and say, I'm going to lead aerobics today. Just walking up to the front, give me that little headset you have on there, your Madonna headset.
Give me DS.
And I'm gonna lead. They're like, you're insane.
Yeah.
First of all, you're not a member. You haven't paid your dues, right? Yeah. Oh, it's not free. And then the one that is truly special is we end in a circle of trust. And that's where it's amazing to see what guys are willing to reach out and help with and or ask for help with, right? And that leading in a rotating fashion, that first day you can't imagine yourself leading, right? Like sometimes you think that guy who's leading it's the leader every time and he's been doing it for 5 years. And no, maybe that was his first time or second time. And it's taken that guy that just showed up that first time and watching him lead an exercise. And no matter what he says, we're going to do it.
Yep.
If he says we're going to do 30 minutes of burpees, we're doing 30 minutes of burpees. We're going to run
Don't
a long
give
way.
Anybody those ideas.
Right. Well, Plague's already got that. But I mean, it's amazing. You can watch someone that maybe not played a lot of sports growing up leading professional athletes and telling what a professional athlete what to do.
Right.
Right.
I guess I haven't thought about that before.
Or it could be a professional athlete telling someone who's not very athletic. And then it's the leadership role. It's getting that ability to lead. Right. And there are a lot of type A personalities in our group.
Yeah.
And you're leading a lot of type A personalities. You got 15 guys. I'd say 15 is a minimum. We've been doing 20, 30, 40 guys.
We're going to have to add another Murph site.
I know it.
Yeah.
I know it. And so when you do that, just think of the confidence that it takes when you go back home or into the office and maybe you've never led a meeting before and it's always been kind of intimidating, but you get this chance now. And it's only 3 or 4 people. And you're like, I got this. Yeah. I got this. I've been doing this my whole life. I got this, right? And so it's watching the development of men And that's part of our mission statements, to plant, grow, and serve small workout groups for the invigoration of male community leadership. And those aren't just words. We live them, right?
Yeah, I didn't fully get that until I think it was probably when I talked to to Sparty about it, maybe even for this podcast, but was this idea that, we really could. And I think Omaha has really embraced this. I mean, I've been to Orlando. They've got a great, they've got a great group. I'm planning on going back. I'm probably planning on going. This is called Space Coast next week. But they've got, way more population than we have here, and they might have one site a day. And so for whatever reason, whatever's special about what's going on here, the idea that we could have a group in every neighborhood, right? Like, you would never see me again because I've got 20 guys from my neighborhood working out at the park down there every single day, right? That's kind of the goal, right?
It is the goal. And it's the starfish mentality that you can, cut off an arm of a starfish and that arm itself will grow. And and we've done an amazing job. And I think it really goes back, and it starts with wait time and what he brought here. And, I tell the guys that I do a Q school. They've asked me to do this, and I've done it several times. And it's a little intimidating in some ways, even for myself, trying to tell these guys all these things, what they need and supposed to do and how to do it. And I just remind them, this is not me telling you this. I'm just reiterating what F3 is about. And I take a lot of pride in that, because we all played the telephone game as a kid, right? Where you get the first person read something, and then the next person has to tell what that person said. Not that if we didn't do these things, that fifth site could look nothing like what F3 is supposed to look like.
Right.
And then that site would have a problem growing because it didn't have all of the things that are needed.
That's really interesting.
So when there's a small group and there's 7 of you and you've all done this a while, you still say the 5 core principles.
Right.
You still say the mission statement. You still say the disclaimer.
Yeah.
Because that's what we do.
Yeah.
Right. And so it was just indoctrinated into me that this is what we do. And so I didn't become, and I said, we're not militant, but we're regimented. There are ways to do it. There's a way to say the exercise. And I tell folks, when you say it right, which is silly and sometimes, but when you say it right, you say the correct exercise, and you start them right, guys look at you and go, okay,
you're ready.
You're ready.
I'm going to follow you.
And when the exercises are laid out perfectly and you do it right, guys, like, this person put in time, prepared. If I'm getting up at 5 o'clock to come work out, I hope you've put some time in thinking about what workout you're putting together for us.
Yeah. That
you're just not going to wing it and not know any of the exercise and say, oh, that's silly. We'll just call it jumping jacks. No.
Yeah.
It's called side straddle hop, right?
Yep.
It's silly, right? But that's what it's called, right? And there are guys who come in and didn't quite understand it or respect it or thought it was silly at first that are now full in.
No, it's weird because, thinking it's silly at first. I don't remember exactly what I was thinking when I went with the curse to the first one that I went with him to. I think it was I think it was Paradise.
It was Paradise.
And I didn't really know what to expect, but it was a little bit, I felt it like it was a little cheesy because we have these different names for things. And then there's a lot of, your code name. It's very similar to what I would imagine a fraternity would be, although I've never been in a fraternity, but in like really good ways, right? Like,
right.
There's a little, I brought my friend from growing up to Red Wing on Monday. He's a Catholic priest. And he's out on the East Coast, and one of the things that he mentioned on the way back in the car after we were done is he goes, and he's very introspective. He's a Yale trained attorney before he went to become a priest.
Wow.
Anyway, he's got a great story, but he said, I'm going to butcher his words, but he said, the men were basically what he said was, they're so genuine and they're so encouraging for you to be there, right? So like, instead of, and you get, people aren't going to haze you first and then encourage you, right? It's no, we're going to get you in, we're going to get you comfortable, and we're going to be encouraging, then we can bust your balls a little bit.
Totally. And that also goes physically.
Exactly. So
it's not just the are you saying the right things? It's also the physical part about it, is that F3 is 100% geared for the 6. The workout is not for the top guy. The workout is geared for the 6, for the guy that we're bringing along, right? Because if it was, just go to CrossFit. Right. And those who don't feel like they're getting enough workouts, well, when you're waiting instead of Al Gore, which is just kind of a squat, why don't you do burpees?
Yep.
Right. Or why don't you circle back? Right. So you can get your workout in and get all the calories burnt and all your miles in and still have that guy that's out of shape, huffing and puffing, and bring him along, feel like he's just part of that workout, just like you were. Because I was that guy. The joke is that it wasn't a joke. I thought they changed my name to the 6.
Yeah. Really? You didn't think that?
Yes. Those first 5 workouts, I still said khakis, but I thought it was like a nickname. The 6 is in. The 6 in, because the 6 is in.
No way.
And I thought they changed my name.
They thought that was you.
I thought they gave me the nickname, and then they nicknamed me again the 6. Because I did not grow up in a military family or with a lot of military language, knowing the 12 and 6.
Yeah.
So that was a foreign concept to me. So I just thought they called me the 6.
Wow.
And once I kind of figured that out, I said, okay, I get it. And it was really weird because on all the runs, because I was going every day, there would always be someone else back running with me. I'm like, God, that's so awesome. Someone's tired too. Then I realized they're not tired.
No, they're not tired.
They're just coming back with me. And it was a different guy. And it wasn't like a rehearsed plan. It just happens. It organically happens.
Yep.
Right.
Well, it's not organic because I think it's purposeful.
For sure.
But it's not always the same person. Right. It's not always the same.
That's what I mean. That it's not saying, okay, you got the 6 today, right? It's just who's ever there, or maybe someone who knows them. And I always think it's really helpful. I believe that the guy that brought you isn't the 6, isn't the one coming back to pick up the 6, just someone else. And most of the time when I do it, I'm tired, and I use it as an excuse to kind of be, but I rarely say anything.
I don't either.
I just run behind them.
Yeah, I don't
run
either.
Beside him.
I think a lot of times what happens is, and it happened today, and I won't say who it was, but we had a fun, tough workout at the berm, and I pre-ran with Merch and Armbar, and so we get done and we start up, and we had a guy that was really struggling. So we went down to the lake again, and then ran back up, and he was really struggling back up, and you go back and you pick him up, and what's he saying? I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. It's like, no. Yeah. And I'm not saying, I'll try to, sometimes I'll just try to make conversation, but I'm not going to say, I just have gotten out of the habit of being like, you're doing great. Keep it up. It's like, I know they know they're doing it. They're working as hard as they can. I'm just going to be by them, and we're going to keep going. And
that's so true. And I'll tell you another thing. So this was Tuesday. I did the Apex with hard hat, which is that.
Oh yeah, I wanted to do that.
It's tough, but it's not tough for anything we've done.
Sure.
So, but it's tough. But so one of the guys that rolls up, I didn't know him very well, and so one of the guys mentions that, hey, we got one more coming. It's Kobayashi. I'm like, I don't know that.
Yeah, I don't know that I've.
And so he pulls up, and we're just kind of waiting for him, just waiting on 1 or 2 minutes, so it wasn't very long. And he gets there, and I was like, hey, Kobayashi, what's up? He's like, you remember my name? And instead of saying, no, this guy just told me that you were coming.
Right.
I said, oh, yeah. And you could tell it meant the world. Like he was like, man, all right. So the inclusiveness of F3 is incredible. And the different walks of life that people come from, socioeconomic backgrounds. How
do you translate? Sorry to interrupt your train of thought, but a lot of this comes down to how do you translate that into the plant, grow, and serve the community, right? For the community. So how do you transition what we've got in F3? How have you seen it happen? in your life where now your neighbors are better, or you're helping to make your neighborhood better, your work life better, your kids better? Like, is there some tangible things that you've seen happen that you've been able to kind of
for sure.
Yeah.
And that kind of leads into the concentrica, which is, to get right, to leave right, to lead right, all those different things. And so, but the first thing is you have to get yourself right.
It can take a while.
And it can take a while, right? And the fitness part is real part of it. It isn't just, and they talk about the getting fit will allow you to do more things, right? We all want to be more fit, right? And so getting fit, and then it is then understanding around you who you are actually impacting, right? And just the amount of people that you can impact when you are right internally, right? Both physically and mentally. And I think that's what I've seen is I've seen guys then say, okay, I got right. Now I want to give back to our community. And so that's, when people ask me about the faith part, we have what we're supposed to say, which is believe in a higher power, which is I'm totally on board with that. But it's also just have faith in the guys around you, that these guys are on the same path, right? I used to say just have faith that when a shovel flag is planted in the morning, I'll be there. Can't say that anymore because there's so many shovel flags. I can't be everywhere.
You can't be everywhere.
But when there was one, I said, plant that shovel. I guarantee you I'm going to be standing right next to it at 5:30. And so just have faith in that. And if that's what you want to have faith in to start with. But I've seen guys grow spiritually. I've seen, the foundation that Sparty has got going, right? Yeah. The CSOP where we gave back to Boys Town, and the amount of presents and clothing, and just it was incredible to see what we're doing at some of the food banks, right? At the anniversary, the amount of canned goods that we raised. We are making a difference, right? But first thing we had to do, we had to get fit. We had to get a bunch of guys fit. We had to figure out what we were doing, and now we're moving on to bigger and better things. I mean, this foundation is a real thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not a $5,000 scholarship. It's a $20,000 scholarship. Right. It's $5,000 a year
for basically 4 kids, right?
Yes.
So it's going to carry through. They can keep going every year.
Yep.
And reapply. I mean, it's huge.
It is huge. And so, we're going to make sure that is funded before we offer that scholarship. Right? And say, okay, we're going to get enough funds to get it. So what we're going to need to do in order to make sure that the funds are already in is continue to reach out to our community to let them know the good things that we're doing. It literally is amazing when you think about what F3 is, and you try to, and so when you get so like,
but see, you can't, all the stuff that's come out of your mouth for the last 30 minutes, I tend to want to do that when I got a buddy over and we're having drinks or having dinner and our kids are playing around. I'm like, come on with me. And then I start talking about it. I'm like, I know the more I'm talking to you about all these things, you probably think I'm drinking Kool-Aid and I'm putting something in your drink and we're going to be all laying down and going to sleep forever,
Right.
But like, I mean, I'm joking, but in the sense of like trying to, you kind of scare people off, but it is this idea of like, I think the better way is, hey, why don't you come join me for a workout at 5:30 in the morning? You can do it. It's easy. There's it's not easy, but you can do it. And there's guys that do it all the time. But sorry, I think the thing I detracted from was just this idea that there's so many things that are going on within F3. It's so all encompassing, but it's not just what happens in the workout group. It's not just even what happens in the foundation, and the donations and some of the other things we do, but it's trickling down into people's everyday lives.
Totally. And for sure it is. And they come back and they tell you, and they start talking about this stuff in the circle of trust, or you just see it, or and granted, you can't hear everybody's story all the time, right? Because we're now so large, but the guys that are just doing better. The amount of guys in our group that have told substances, they told substances guys, to go away.
I look at guy like, I didn't know that story about you. I won't mention his name, but probably we'll have him on but there's multiple people where I'm like, oh, I would not have ever known that you were an addict.
Mm-hmm.
And not just like alcohol. I mean, that's not
Right.
that that's the bad, but I mean, there's hardcore
Right.
guys that have their stuff right now.
Yep.
And they were on some.
Yeah. They were on the wrong path.
Yeah.
Right. And they're some of our best leaders right now.
Yep.
And, I've shared a little bit about my brother, and
is he dealing with the same stuff you were?
Yeah. He just,
how did it get into?
I don't know. My dad passed away 7 years ago, and I think it's been kind of a tough go for him. And, I don't know how happy he is. He's got a beautiful wife and 2 great kids, and they work at a Catholic school together, and he's a coach of a track. But I just don't know how happy he is, right? Otherwise, he wouldn't be doing it. And unfortunately, he's not just that night, and putting himself in real bad situations. And I've talked to my mom about it. I go, there are so many guys that have had this. Let's just put this way, had a substance that they were struggling with. And I can tell you there's 10 different ways they've stopped doing it, right? I mean, tater tot.
Yeah.
Cold turkey day started. Cold turkey. And he went gone and just never went back, right? It hasn't.
Yeah.
Since the day he started. Since Big One got him out, he has not had one sip of alcohol, right? And we were running at Cornhusker, and it was actually after the workout. So it was a post run.
Oh, yeah.
And I was just running because I was just had a lot on my mind. And he asked if he could run with me. We were running with me, and he told me his story. And I'd only been in F3 for maybe a month, and I was trying to accelerate as fast as I could. So it was probably in January, February. It was cold. And I just went, what? It's the exact same thing I did.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because at that time, probably I hadn't had, maybe I tried a beer after that, and it just wasn't. I'm like, wow. And that he was an athlete, and he was in sports, and so we developed a pretty good bond that day of just running a couple laps around Cornhusker. Right, not 10 miles, maybe about a mile, maybe afterwards, and then we went and got coffee. And I think that's the other thing that makes F3 Omaha very unique is the coffee afterwards, the glue of sitting down with somebody and just spending 20 minutes having a cup of coffee with them. And that's where that small workout group comes in as well. And so Omaha, and you said you've been to Orlando, and I've been to a couple places in New Orleans, F3. We're unique that we have coffee after every single workout. And there are very few places that have that, if at all. I think we're the only one. Most have it on Saturdays, and most maybe have it another day in the week. We have it every day. Every day there's a place to have coffee afterwards with the guys. And so I think that second F part of it has truly been the glue that they talk about, right? That the workout is the magnet. The second F is the coffee's the glue, right? So you never tell anybody, hey, come for coffee at 6:15, right? You say come for the workout, and there's coffee afterwards. So they come for the workout. That's the thing that we're trying to get them. Everybody wants to get in shape, but it's the coffee afterwards that's the glue. And then once you realize that you're glued in, then you start looking at why are we doing this, and that's where the third F comes in. And so I always get these thoughts. I just get different thoughts in my head, and I start going different directions. But I struggled with it first. Why is faith third?
Right.
One of my favorite, and I don't read very often, one of my favorite books was Gail Sayers' I Am Third, right? God is first, family second, I am third. And we put fitness, fellowship, and faith. I'm like, that seems like the opposite order.
Explain that. Because when I tell people, when I say what F3 stands for, I always lead with faith, fellowship, fitness. For whatever reason, I'm not doing it on purpose, but there's a purpose for why it's the other way.
Well, as a Catholic, that's the way we were raised.
Yeah, right.
That your faith is first, and your family is second, and we're third, and all in that order. And I always thought it was kind of odd that they decided to do it this way, but you have to get yourself in the right state of mind and fit first, right?
Well, for people who don't have any faith, right, or are very struggling, it's very hard in many cases to come out and and bring them in, right? There's
Right.
lots of places for that, right? The Catholic Church is right down the street from me, and you want to work on faith first. Well, there's an option for that,
Right.
But I think that it does make sense to flip it the other way, because you're seeing that. I mean, when I think about guys, you sort of start scratching the surface and you learn more. So you start by just pounding away, right? You're getting up every morning, you're going to a beat down, you're locking shields with guys in that beat down.
Mm-hmm.
You start to trust them. You start to realize that they're human beings, but they're good people. And that brings your fellowship, right? And if your faith is weak, or even if it's strong, but if your faith is weak, I couldn't tell you, hey, Joe, I need you to come to mass with me, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can tell this is really hurting you. I think that it'd be a great thing to bring you back into it. I'm not saying that's where you are, but it would be hard for me to do that if that's the first approach you have, right? You'd be like, "What? Who are you?
I agree.
I'm in a Hy-Vee parking lot."
Right.
Right. And yet here you are, right? Probably all those things have been strengthened because of that offer for the workout group.
And I think it's so. Two of the people that I've EH'd are now going to church with the person that EH'd me, which is kind of ironic, right? So the Plague is very involved at his church, and now Chicklets and Stinkbait are both starting to attend that church. Pony starting to attending that church. So the faith component of F3 is real. That the level of diversity in Omaha is not vast, right? Most people are Christian
or Catholic.
Yeah, or
they're Catholic. They're Catholic Christians,
right?
Yeah.
If you want to narrow it even further,
yeah.
But so when you start talking about Christ and you're doing your COT, you're relating to most people, right? Even those who have wandered, right? And it's great seeing those people that have wandered come back, right, or find faith. And I believe that faith starts with those guys in that circle, right? And within those guys in that circle, you start to look up and go, okay, there's a higher power, right? But I think a lot of it for those who have struggled or wandered, or even those who are involved and go to Catholic church every Sunday, it strengthens it, right? It really does. And so I thought it was odd at first, but it makes perfect sense once you're in it that component has to, in order for that component to be real and not just be a facade saying you go to church. For it to be real, you have to get those other two first. The fellowship has to come. I think the fit part is both physically and mentally. Yeah. The fellowship has to be real, those who you trust around you. Then the faith component definitely comes in.
Yeah, totally. We got a little, So I
visitor.
think, no, it's good. So then when do you bring your son? When does that happen in your mind? Right. Certainly what we've done has kind of trickled down into being there. So we've got like kind of our 2.0 workouts, but I've noticed that Patton has brought Nemo, right? And he's just maybe a freshman, but he can hang. I mean, he's an athlete. But when, what's too early? When you think about your son or Nemo, for example,
right? It's
probably not an age. It's probably something else.
Right.
But Nemo probably isn't going to get out of it the same stuff that you get out of it or that I get out of it, because there's other stuff that we're dealing with. He gets stuff, right? But is there a too early time where people aren't going to appreciate it or aren't going to be ready? What has to happen in your life in order to say, this is ready, I'm ready for this?
Well, that's funny you should ask that, and that these questions are not planned out, but something did happen. The pandemic happened, right? So school was out. So my 16-year-old son started coming out every day, just like his dad.
He did.
And I told him, I go, listen, I'm not going to force you to do this, but I'm going to get you up. If you say, Dad, at 9:00 at night, Dad, please get me up. Well, I'm going to get you up. I'm not going to fight you over it. And when we had those COVID workouts and when Kaki's Cafe started, he didn't sit with us with coffee afterwards, but he came to every one of those workouts. And it's when we did the 2-person name-oramas. It's when we were doing our, individual name-oramas, and you'd do it, then you'd post yourself on there, that he and I would do it. And it would start with him. And I have this just string of videos that I will never get rid of on my phone. For about 40 straight days, he went with us. And so that was
what's his name?
Quick Snap, because he plays center on the football team.
That's right. And
so I loved how other guys respected him getting up in the morning, and I tried to tell him that they really look up to you being 16, getting up in the cold. There were some cold mornings during COVID last year when no school was going on. A lot of guys weren't working, so we were staying later at coffee. It was just a really good time. So that time presented itself really well. And it was a perfect time for him to do that, and his development and our personal relationship, right? Watching him grind. I love him seeing me do the things that I was doing out there, and I love watching him do it as well. And then the other guys working with him, and then the first time he co-cued with me. Those are all things that
man, I missed all of that.
It was awesome.
Yeah, that's cool.
It was awesome, and so proud of him and doing that. He hasn't been out in a while. He's got football and he's training and he's doing all those things, but then on the opposite end, I've got my other son, Noah, who's just a 8-year-old and comes for the 2.0s and loves the field day and things like that. So I've got a little bit of a range there.
Yeah. Well, I'll be respectful of your time. I think this was a ton of fun. Sparty and I closed it out last time with a little name-orama. So
all right.
I'll start.
Okay.
Chris Wolf, 39, Cataracts.
I'm Joe Schaffner, 52, Khakis.
Khakis, respect. Thanks for doing it, Joe. I appreciate it. This was great.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot.